War leaves an indelible mark on the world, but its deepest scars are often carried by those who lived through it. Over the past 2 months, we embarked on a journey to explore the theme of remembrance in the context of war. Our documentary, Remembrance of War, aims to shine a light on these stories of veterans and refugees, two groups of people often marginalized and overlooked. Divided into 3 focus groups, our team of dedicated students delved into 8 specialized topics. These topics span from the commemoration of French resistance in Hong Kong during World War II to the struggles of veterans in contemporary Germany, supported by NGOs such as Combat Veteran e.V. and the efforts of the Hong Kong Ex-Servicemen Association in aiding veterans in Hong Kong. In our final chapter, we turn our attention to Jewish refugees in Hong Kong during World War II and the ongoing challenges faced by refugees in modern-day Germany and Hong Kong. These individuals, refugees, and often as well veterans, carry invisible scars that linger long after the conflict has ended. Through this documentary, we aim to shine a light on these often forgotten voices. We hope to encourage a dialogue that goes beyond mere discussion, urging people to engage with veterans and refugees, to listen to their stories and to understand their experiences. Join us as we remember the past, honor the present, and look towards a future where these stories are not just heard, but truly understood.
An essential question, actually. It's all about the duty of remembrance. So we want to make sure that future generations understand the stakes and how important it is at the crucial times to make the right decisions. And obviously, by making them understand in depth their stories, we want to make sure that they can really think about the importance of citizenry and defending their country. It's not just a concept, it's really something that sometimes we all have to do.
How do you think about these kinds of history memory shaping the French culture's identities and values?
Very well. Well, obviously it's a challenge because our great wars were quite some time ago. So if we're talking about the First World War, it's 100 years ago, or the Second World War, 80 years ago. And quite frankly, they're all getting older, as we all are. So it's very important, and the challenge is to upkeep the memory. So this transmission with younger generations, making sure they participate in commemorative events, it's really something that will foster in them a will to upkeep the memory and this duty of remembrance. And by making them curious of what happened then, and really want them to try and make sure that those things don't repeat themselves, it's by installing this will and this understanding in younger generations.
Do you think the memorials in Hong Kong can effectively shape the public memory and understanding of France's role during the Second World War?
Well, I think yes. Well, I think as we just said, the French people contributed to the history of Hong Kong during the Second World War, and I think it's important for the collective memory to remind everybody of the role that we played at the time.
Know what is the most challenging part in retracing the history when you want to see in depth of what is the particular aspect for individuals and their own life?
Absolutely. So the most challenging part is all the forensic historical research that has to be done. It is really complicated and difficult to go 50, 80, 100 years ago, and in a pre-social media era, pre-data era, to try and find physical old ID cards or rosters and regimental moves. It's really complicated to try and discern and find the people, where they were, what they were doing, and behind it understand their intentions and their environment at the time. So it's a whole, and this can be done in multiple physical areas. So as I was saying earlier, it can be done not only in France, but sometimes you have to go to England or you have to go overseas. So it's not an easy task, but it's very rewarding when you manage to find some names to be added, and it's really comforting in knowing that we are honoring their memory.
this kind of history, the French fighting for Hong Kong, is not recorded in the textbook. So how the Souvenir Français, how they keep doing the future of historical preservation to Hong Kong?
So all proportions guarded, it was a small amount of French that participated in those events of the Battle of Hong Kong, especially if we compare towards the British and the Canadians, who had much greater forces here and who had much more sacrifices, right? So all proportions guarded, right? We do it through our commemorations every year. So that's the main reason why we have the December events, is that we want to make sure that it doesn't get forgotten, right? That's really what we do.
Like, as the president of the Le Souvenir Français of Hong Kong, what has been the most rewarding aspect of your work in previous history?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. It's really the duty of remembrance through transmission. So the aspect of being able to see young students come out of the bus and all saying, what am I doing here? Why do I have to come? And then when they hear the stories of what happened to our fallen heroes on the Stele, they all think about the implications it has, not only for them, but what it would mean if they ever had to be confronted in the same situation. So they all leave with what I call a little grain of patriotism and understanding what it means to care for a cause that is greater than yourself.
So how about like we try to talk about like the recent trends, because as far as we know, there has been a recent trend of a more high involvement, like especially from the mainland Chinese government. So then, and their goal is to focus on cultivating like Chinese culture. So with that in mind, what kind of challenges have you observed in preserving and also promoting French historical sites in Hong Kong, and how do you think that like these challenges can be addressed properly?
So yes, one of our priorities in Hong Kong is to work with people here on heritage preservation. We in France, you know, it's very important, and we're happy to share our experience, and of course to make the memory in Hong Kong of the French presence in Hong Kong continue and passed on to next generations. And we actually we have a great interest. We feel a great interest here in Hong Kong for all these subjects. I think Hong Kong has a very unique identity, unique architectural legacy buildings, and we have a lot of partners here on the government side, but also academic side, NGOs who are happy to work with us. What we are trying to do is, for example, every year at the end of September, we have an important moment, which is the Legacy Days, European Legacy Days, that we celebrate in France. It allows actually on, you know, it always takes place on the last weekend of September. And it allows people to access different public venues or legacy buildings that are usually not open to the public. And this is the kind of event that we have tried to replicate here. And we have also encouraged our partners to take ownership of this kind of event to promote the memory of these buildings and history. And it's also, I think, a good way of highlighting the unique identity of Hong Kong with the presence of international communities like the French community. Raise awareness among, you know, people about the importance of your history and of having also a scientific approach to history. But there are also, you know, other great initiatives like the one related to this exhibition on which you've been working on landing in Normandy with the participation of Chinese Marine officers. This is the kind of initiative that is very valuable to shape, I think, the collective conscious with regards to history.
French consulate have any plans to engage with the local communities in Hong Kong to promote awareness of this historical period and its significance?
Well, yes, I mean, this ceremony that we're organizing at the Stanley Cemetery every year is part of this endeavor to maintain this link or showcase the link between the French community and Hong Kong people, dating back from years ago. Also this exhibition to which you're participating, and the European Days. This year, for example, we organized this very special occasion. We organized several tours with our guiding tours, and you can follow the history of these different places. This French presence is really scattered all around Hong Kong. The guiding tour cannot go everywhere, but it's always, and actually François Drimaud has made some very good presentations also in the past, including at it was the Stanley Cemetery.
Catholic, and also the Hong Kong Cemetery, and also in Happy Valley.
Yes, in Happy Valley. And I was amazed to see how many French people and how much French history you have in this place.
But for me personally, I really admire their courage on the moment, on a split decision. And it was totally voluntary. They were not forced to do it. So I think it renders this even more incredible. And obviously for each and every one of us, as I said earlier, I think it really makes us think about, what would I do? And it makes us think about that, and I thank them also for that.
Do you have a personal history with World War II or veterans?
Interestingly, I do.
Okay.
So I come from a military family.
Okay.
So I had parts of my family that were involved in the First World War and the Second World War.
I think LUI Ho Wang, who was the consul in Hong Kong at the time of the Second World War, is actually one of these heroes of the time, who actually took the initiative to resist at the time against the decision of France also to side with Germany at the time. And I think, as diplomats, we are quite proud of what he did at the time. In those times of international tensions, when we have wars, including in Europe, I think, yes, his deed at the time is still very inspiring for us. Well, actually, it's not very well known, but the French presence in Hong Kong dates back from the 19th century, and it's quite important. At the time, you had all these missionaries, business people, diplomats who came to Hong Kong and really wanted to, help people here, including orphans, people with diseases. So they built, hospitals, orphanages, schools, and today these buildings still exist. For example, the French, what used to be called the French Hospital on the Kowloon side, Etienne, Nazareth, that now are part of HKU. So all these, I think, are really part of the legacy buildings and the landscape of Hong Kong today, and we're quite proud of that. It's also not so well known, but the Bohemia flower, which represents Hong Kong today, was actually discovered by a French missionary at the end of the 19th century. So it's also part of the French contribution to today's Hong Kong. Well, actually, if we just take the example of the participation of French people to the resistance against the Japanese invasion at the time, this is a memory that we are perpetrating in Hong Kong. Each year in December, we organize a ceremony at the Stanley Cemetery. French people were not very numerous at the time in Hong Kong, but there were those who stayed and decided to fight along, those who wanted to resist against this invasion. they were brave enough, take the arms and resist. So and they lost their lives, so they really sacrificed themselves. So yeah, I think it's also an important memory that we need to continue here. The history of the Second World War is an important part of our history classes in France. So every student would know about this part of history. Of course, they know more about the European side of this history, but they're also taught about what happened in this part of the world, although in a more condensed way. You've just mentioned education. I think it's very key. I think to raise awareness among people about the importance of your history and of having also a scientific approach to history. But there are also other great initiatives like the one related to this exhibition on which you've been working on landing in Normandy with the participation of Chinese Marine officers. This is the kind of initiative that is very valuable to shape, I think, the collective conscious with regards to history.
Me and my classmates visited the World War II Veterans Association located in Causeway Bay. The clubhouse is operated by the members of the Hong Kong and China branch of the Royal British Legion. All the member events, embers, and photographs are well guarded and displayed in the clubhouse. As a European Studies student majoring in German, Hong Kong remembrance work inspired me to do research on how Germany honors its veterans. So what is a veteran? We have interviewed Dr. Kretschmann from the German War Grave Commission to answer our question.
Can you talk about how do you define veterans? The German government has a definition for veterans already, actually.
Veterans means in Germany all soldiers of the Bundeswehr, so of the army of democratic Germany. Those who were part of the Bundeswehr or even are part today, they are called veterans.
In Germany, there are several associations that promote veterans culture, and the German War Graves Commission is one of the associations that promotes remembrance and commemoration of the veterans internationally. And now let's hear more from Dr. Kretschmann about the mission of the German War Graves Commission. How do they promote veterans culture? And most importantly, how does the general public react to their work?
The German War Graves Commission is a non-governmental organization that works for the state and is responsible for all German war graves around the world. So in 46 countries, 830 war grave sites are maintained by the German War Grave Commission for the state. And the individual remembrance of families that go to those war grave sites and remember that their relatives is shrinking. We have less and less people going there. And we say those places are still relevant for young people to learn about history, to learn about the biographies of people that are lying there, of soldiers. Some were as young people today, so 16 years old. And some have very different backgrounds, how they were joining the army. And that's why we maintain those places. It's also a culture, of course, of remembrance that you maintain war graves because they're people that died for the state of Germany. And so the state of Germany, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, supports the work of the German War Grave Commission. We collaborate closely with the Defense Ministry and see war grave sites today as places of learning.
So how does the war graves actually look like?
A war grave site is first of all just a normal cemetery. So it's a grassland with stones and names and dates, and there are no more information, first of all. So it's quite a place that is difficult to access. But our mission is to give information. So some of our war grave sites have an exhibition that give you a bit information about the context of the people. And on individual places, we also have QR codes you can scan with your phone, and then you get more information about the people that you find there. This is our task, to give a historical dimension to the war grave site, to provide information. And for the German War Grave Commission, it's a very important task to educate people. So we have 4 houses of international youth encounters. So houses where young people from all over Europe can meet. One is in France, one is in the Netherlands and Belgium, and on the Polish border. In all those houses, we have bilateral teams, so teams that speak both languages, and there are places next to a war grave site that invite young people to come there and to find out more about the past on those learning sites. And our idea is, of course, that we give examples of very different people that took part in the war, and we would call them today, of course, war criminals or perpetrators, and others are victims, some are bystanders, and some are both. It's always difficult with those categories to find out today to which category they belong. In some cases, it's very clear, but in other cases, it's not clear. But this makes it interesting. That's also our goal, to discuss about history today. We also offer every summer 30 summer camps. So young people come there for 2 weeks in different European countries together, and also they visit war grave sites. They even help to maintain those places, but they also have just a good time together, talk about the past, but also about the present and the future. And the idea is always international dialogue next to those places of the past. Through those projects, we find new generations, young people that are involved in the War Grave Commission, and that also create their own memorial services, their own commemoration services, and connect those topics with relevant topics of today, of question of international dialogue, peace and war, of discrimination, anti-Semitism, equality of people, human rights. These are all topics that are relevant for young people today, and they connect those topics with the biographies that you find on war grave sites. And I think that that's also our main solution for the future, to be relevant when you connect topics that matters today with question to the past, to those memorial sites. Usually there are around 20 to 30 young people from all over Europe. You can register to those summer camps every spring. There's a little fee, but usually they're also supported by public money, for example, from the German-French Youth Organization or the European Union. They support those summer camps, and so it's also quite affordable for a lot of people to travel, to meet people from other countries, and to have a good and interesting time together in the summer. There's always, of course, one big challenge, and that is at the end, you have young people from different countries visiting a German war grave site, and then you talk about the Second World War and the burden of history, what happens in the Second World War, topics of occupation, persecution, murdering other people, and how to remember. And these are difficult topics, and for this you need a structured dialogue. And I think that's also our strength, to give people voices, to be open for different perspectives and narratives. That is very important at the core of the summer camp.
So I saw on the website that you guys also host events on the Volkstrauertag. Can you talk about it? Like what kind of events do you guys do?
Volkstrauertag is the German Remembrance Day, and it takes part every year in the middle of November, and is to remember all war dead. So it means not only the soldiers, but also civilians that died during the war. Civilians of a bomb attack, of persecution by a Nazi regime, people that died during flight and expulsions. So all people that lost their life during the war are remembered on Volkstrauertag. And there are events all over Germany, usually on war grave sites or in parliaments, so in local parliaments, regional parliaments. And the main memorial service is in the German Bundestag, in the German parliament. And every year, the German federal president speaks there, and they invite a guest speaker from a country, from a neighboring country. This year, it will be the president of Romania. And the idea is also, in this case, to remember in the view of international dialogue. Also here, it's very important to have the international perspective. So the Volkstrauertag, I would say, is the public Remembrance Day that is not so known in the German society. So for some people, it has a big meaning, but it's not very popular. It's a day that still for some people is unknown, but usually those events are joined by officials and some families, organizations. To them, the war deaths have meaning.
During deployment, German soldiers are confronted with potentially morally injurious events. In many cases, these events violate their personal value and belief system, resulting in feelings of anger, guilt, and shame. The psychological distress caused by such transgression is defined as moral injury, and some of the soldiers were diagnosed with PTSD. Various reasons made it difficult for the veterans to integrate into the society.
In the wake of German reunification in 1990, significant changes swept across the nation. Among the most profound was the dissolution of the National People's Army, known as the NVA. This military force, once a symbol of East Germany, faced an uncertain future. With the integration of NVA personnel into the Bundeswehr, many veterans hoped for a seamless transition. Yet, reality proved far more complex. As Germany moved forward, veterans of the NVA sought recognition and understanding, striving to honor their service while navigating the realities of a unified nation.
So there were a lot of many differences, not only the military, but also political and cultural, that made these two armies very different.
The integration of two German militaries was a complex process and a challenging task for the government.
There was an external treaty, the 2+4 treaty. So there were a number of rules and regulations necessary to combine the two armies. The Eastern Army was disbanded. Some of the soldiers, nevertheless, were afterwards integrated into the unified Germany.
After the reunification, the role of Germany in global affairs has slowly changed.
But this change has had also to do with the change of history or with the change of focus of military engagement. Before the fall of the Berlin Wall, the German army in the west and the German army in the east were very much focused
Because of Germany's active participation in global affairs, the public attitudes towards militaries in Germany has changed over time.
I remember when I was young that the attitude was very much reservation against everything that had to do with army and war. There was an important verdict by the German Federal Court, and in 1994, 50 years after the Second World War ended, and that made possible that German army could also be deployed internationally. So not only in Germany or with NATO, but also outside NATO territory. The German army, it is called the Bundeswehr, is quite active and very active in that respect. They're visiting schools, there are information days in universities. More important are the general factors. So what is happening in the world, what is happening outside Europe during the last 1 or 2 decades. The question about possible German participation, and it's not always about sending soldiers to fight in such a conflict, but it can be like blue helmets, soldiers working for the United Nations, or together with other European countries in European missions. All this participation, or possible participation, is debated, and people are debating what is happening in Ukraine. People are debating what is happening in Israel and Gaza. The German public realized that, for the most part, the role of the German military, the German army, was a positive one in the past, and that the idea to preserve peace, or to help to preserve peace, is something that is of utmost importance, not only for the government, but also for the military leadership. There are shifts, there are changes in the German attitude from a very cautious and reserved attitude towards a much more open and supportive attitude towards the army today. There is very much collaboration in that respect, and the society in general, and the government of course as well, is proud of and supporting the army.
After German unification, many East German veterans, especially those who served in the National People's Army, faced tough challenges and felt deeply sidelined. They were labeled as veterans of foreign forces and were not recognized as real German soldiers. This label pushed them to the edges of German military tradition, making them feel like outsiders. For example, unlike former soldiers from West Germany's World War II forces, they were not allowed to use their military ranks or titles officially. This unequal treatment made them feel increasingly distant from the new unified state. Financially, things were tough too. East German veterans received much smaller pensions, which some called punishment pensions. Their service years in East Germany were not counted towards their pensions, leaving them with significantly less than West German officers. One former officer mentioned that he and his wife only had 1,400 marks a month, making him feel like a second-class citizen. On top of the financial struggle, finding new jobs was a huge challenge. Many found that their military experience was not only unrecognized, but actually hurt their chances of employment. One former colonel applied for over 100 jobs but was rejected each time, and eventually had to take a low-paying baggage handler job at an airport. Another veteran sarcastically shared that the only job that he could get was as a security guard at a Cold War Factory Museum, which felt like an insult to his past service. Losing their identity as soldiers and facing economic hardship led many East German veterans to distrust the new government. One former Rockets troop colonel said he couldn't trust anything in this democracy. During a veterans meeting, An organizer openly demanded that East German veterans be recognized as German soldiers, arguing that their service should be respected just like that of veterans from other countries like Poland or Czech Republic, who were treated as equals in Germany. For these veterans, life after unification meant a painful drop from respected soldiers to feeling invisible and marginalized in society. They were left questioning where they truly belonged in this new Germany.
Once more, I think it is important to differentiate between the Western and the Eastern part of the two. Western and Eastern Germany were unified in 1990. If you ask them today, would say that the Western bloc, the Western hemisphere, prevailed the Cold War. And so, even though this was not intended, nevertheless, I can imagine that Eastern German soldiers and veterans would even feel more marginalized after the reunification than Western veterans, because as I've said in the beginning, the Eastern German army was disbanded, and if all the soldiers from one day to the other become civilians, what happened between the 2nd and the 3rd of October 1990, it is obvious that they lose their role and that they lose their status, their societal image has changed. So marginalization I would not use as a word for Western veterans or members of the Western army, but for the Eastern part I could imagine that this is something that the people in Eastern Europe felt in the 90s and the years afterwards.
The legacy of the NVA is not just a chapter in Germany's history. It is a reminder of the ongoing struggle for identity and acceptance in a changing world.
Regardless of origins, deployed soldiers are frequently confronted with life-threatening events, serious injuries, witness death, and may even die. These encounters could also bring significant psychological impacts. No soldiers return from a combat tour unaltered. In fact, some may undergo tremendous changes. To this day, many veterans receive little public appreciation in the German society. In a culture where veterans are mainly unrecognized, who is committed to providing them the respect and assistance they merit?
Although the public awareness on veterans issue is still low among the society, there are actually quite a number of organizations working on it. Let's take a look at 4 large organizations in Germany.
Bund Deutscher Einsatzbataillon e.V. was founded in 2010. It is a big organization that demands sustainable security and improvement of care for combat-stressed veterans of the Bundeswehr, and they stand for improving the appreciation of veterans in politics and society. Having the motto, "From Veterans to Veterans," the other organization, Combat Veterans e.V., support the active and former soldiers in the Bundeswehr who have taken part in at least one deployment abroad.
Wie sagt man so schön, der Blinde, der von Farbe spricht. Das wollten wir nicht. Wir wollten nicht irgendeinen Fremden, irgendeinen Stellvertreter haben, sondern wir haben uns gesagt, wir als Einsatzveteranen verstehen uns am besten und können dann natürlich auch aus tiefster Überzeugung, aus tiefstem innerem Antrieb, ehrlich, redlich, einen jeden Interessierten darüber berichten, und müssen es nicht vom Hörensagen machen, sondern wir waren alle selbst dabei, wir sind authentisch.
The association pursues exclusively non-profit and charitable purposes by promoting assistance for war victims, war survivors, prisoner of wars, civilian victims, and the disabled. As a partner of Combat Veterans EVO, Green Devils Military Brotherhood also shares the same values as it. They welcome former and active soldiers and attempt to live by and maintain true lifelong friendships. The other partner of them is Veteranenkultur e.V. They hold various public relations work to increase the visibility of veterans with and without operational experience and give them support.
These veteran organizations are crucial in ensuring the sacrifices made by military members are acknowledged and remembered. They actively raise awareness toward veterans through commemorative events such as Remembering Ceremony. Veterans' memory are preserved, and a sense of community is fostered by these events. Speaking of Veteranenkultur, they have organized a significant event in raising awareness toward veterans, namely March of Appreciation.
A culture of veterans cannot be demanded, it must be fostered. March of Appreciation is how Veteranenkultur lives up to their motto. This yearly occasion provides a chance for demonstrating support, gratitude, and respect for all types of operational forces, including police, firefighters, medical personnel, soldiers, veterans, and others. The march seeks to increase public awareness of the difficulties these people face in their careers, both in their professional lives and in dealing with social attitudes towards them. It offers a variety of local marches as well as a virtual option, enabling participation in a variety of ways. In addition to showcasing the contribution of these professionals, the event raises funds for Admiralton Kids, an organization that supports children from traumatized households, highlighting the needs for attention and care of trauma in veterans' families as well. With this budget, 2 youth seminars, Time Out from Trauma, have been held in 2022, providing support to affected children and a chance for a vacation.
Apart from public awareness, there are other 2 aspects that organizations focus on, namely involvement in governance and mental support.
The organizations often participate in the budget proposals and the political decisions on the official events for veterans, such as the newly established National Veterans Day. Participating in policymaking ensures that veterans receive the support and welfare they deserve and increases the public awareness of the veterans in Germany. Being traumatized is not an uncommon phenomenon after a mission. Many veterans suffer from emotional illness or even PTSD afterwards. To ensure mental support for veterans, 24-hour hotlines staffed by qualified professionals are available for veterans seeking someone to speak with. Likewise, regular workshops and events such as sport competitions and charitable events are organized to foster connection among veterans from diverse backgrounds. These initiatives aim to facilitate networking, encourage the sharing of personal experiences, and promote mutual support among veterans.
Ultimately, the primary objective of this effort is to provide opportunities for veterans to get together, reunite, and form a sense of community.
Vereinstechnisch unvergessliche Momente sind eigentlich immer wieder die Zusammentreffen von Einsatzveteranen. Und gerade wenn sie sich über Jahre nicht gesehen haben, aus den Augen verloren haben und dann zum Beispiel bei uns im Verein bei einem Veteranentreffen dann nach Jahren, Jahrzehnten wohlmöglich wiedersehen und ja, in der Regel ist das dann sehr emotional und sehr tiefschürfend dann natürlich die Gespräche.
Building upon the foundational work of German veteran organizations, we now turn our attention to the Veteran Congress, the Veteranen-Kongress, a landmark event of Germany's growing veteran movement. Held for the first time in February 2024 in Berlin, this congress was organized by the Deutsches Bundeswehrverband, the German Armed Forces Association, and supported by the President of the Bundestag, Bärbel Bas, who served as the event's honorary patron. The Veteran Congress gathered veterans, advocates, political representatives, and researchers under one roof. Key participants included veterans organizations leader, parliament member responsible for veterans affairs, and experts in military sociology. It was the first time that these various stakeholders had come together in one place. Together, they discussed the present issues that German veterans face, from recognition and integration to a need for a designated national Veterans Day. As one of the participants of the Congress, our interviewee, Mr. Hesse from Combat Veteran, also shared his thoughts about the results of the Congress.
Ich persönlich sage, auch wenn das auf der Zeitschiene natürlich schon länger unterwegs war, gerade dieser Veteranenkongress war nochmal der letzte Stein, der letzte Anschub, um die Politik dazu zu zwingen, sich wirklich mit dem Thema zu beschäftigen. Und diese Geschlossenheit der Veteranenvereine in Deutschland hat durch diesen Veteranenkongress, glaube ich, nochmal den Stein des Anstoßes gegeben, wirklich diesen Veteranentag zu beschließen.
As Mr. Hesse has mentioned, the Congress played an important role in pushing for a National Veterans Day, a day dedicated to honor veterans, which has since gained a significant traction in the Bundestag. The success of the Veteran Congress has set the stage for future gatherings and solidified a collaborative spirit in German veterans community. It has become a milestone, symbolizing not only the convergence of idea and support, but also the solidification of the movement that speaks for the shared interests and rights of German veterans.
Besides Veteran Congress, it is also important for us to focus on a significant milestone in Germany's history, the establishment of Veterans Day, or Veteranentag, which was celebrated for the first time on June 15th. This day marks a significant shift on how Germans honor those who have served in the military. Historically, veterans in Germany have not received the respect and recognition they deserve. After World War II, the country struggled with its militaristic past, leading to a culture where the term veteran was scarcely used and often associated with disgrace rather than honor. Despite efforts from veterans organizations to raise awareness, significant changes were slow to materialize. During our interview with Mr. Hesse, the co-founder of Combat Veteran, he mentioned that other countries are celebrating Veterans Day, but not Germany. What's more, the former German Federal Defense Minister proposed an idea similar to the Veterans Day 12 years ago, but hardly anyone shared the same opinion with him. However, on April 25, 2024, Germany is now taking a bold step forward as the Bundestag has passed a resolution. June 15 is now officially designated as the Veterans Day, a day for public and visible commemoration for those who have served in the Bundeswehr. This initiative aims to reshape how society views veterans and acknowledges their sacrifices. The support for this initiative has been widespread in diverse political spectrum, and many parties are expressing the need for change. Defense Minister Boris Pistorius emphasized that this is an overdue signal of recognition and appreciation. Many veterans return home bearing physical and psychological scars from their service. The new implementation also advocates improved care for them, including rehabilitation services and customized support systems. This commitment is crucial for creating a culture of appreciation and support that has been lacking for far too long. This Veterans Day is more than just a day on the calendar. It represents a renewed commitment to honor and support those who have served the country with pride. Together with the veteran organizations and the Veteran Congress, we embrace this day as an opportunity for the German society to reflect deeply on the sacrifices made by the armed forces.
As we shift our focus from Europe to Asia, the narratives of bravery and sacrifice continue to echo across continents. Our journey now takes us to the vibrant city of Hong Kong, where we had the honor of speaking with Mr. Albert Lam, the dedicated chairman of the Hong Kong Ex-Servicemen's Association. Mr. Lam shared with us about the work of the Hong Kong Ex-Servicemen's Association have done to build a sense of community among veterans in Hong Kong, And they organize social events for veterans in Hong Kong regularly. And their association located in Causeway Bay, where ex-servicemen can come together and connect. But it doesn't stop there. The association also focuses on honoring veterans through ceremonies and memorials, like the annual Remembrance Day in November. Through Mr. Lam's insight, we get a valuable perspective on how important it is to support and recognize those who have served, highlighting how vital community and acknowledgement are for veterans.
Can you tell us a bit about your role as a chairman of Hong Kong Ex-Servicemen Association?
Well, as a chairman, I really look after two main areas. One is on the welfare side. We do have some soldiers who fall in hardship, need our help. And the other part, I would say fraternity. I believe we must do something to maintain the comradeship. So we organize quite a number of activities throughout the year. We have monthly activity like the happy hour. We also organize outing, and then we have annual dinner, things like the whole thing is try to keep the comradeship. I think this is very important. Really, we used to live as a big group in the field, in the barrack. Now we really get something organized to bring them back to all those good old days.
Okay, and what motivates you to join the military, and what was the experience like in the military?
Well, to be honest, when I start, I think this is very a good job, because the army pay me not bad, and the most important thing I believe is the training I can learn. The army really provide a lot of opportunity to train people up to meet their needs. They spend a lot of time to train up soldiers. So I think the whole career, I go through different level. I start as a soldier, and then I was promoted to be an officer. Through all the rank and everything and the courses, I learned a lot of skill. And all those skills I learned from the army benefit me when I left the army and joined the university. And I just make use of all those I learned from the army. Yeah.
How does Hong Kong Ex-Servicemen Association support its members?
We give them quite a lot of support. Mainly, if those really have finance problem or health problem, we instead of financial support, we also have a group of volunteers who visit them at hospital, who will visit them at home. And we also, in our association, we have something like a call-up service. Those senior members, 75 and above, we have a group of people, they will call them every 3 months. Just a normal conversation. You can imagine many of our men, they are loneliness for old people is the biggest problem. My colleague tell me every time when they ring, the other side just don't want to hang up. Keep talking about children, talk about those service time, and really this is something we want to carry on.
What are some unique challenges that faced by Hong Kong veterans?
We very much an independent organization. The Hong Kong government won't treat us different. I mean, don't treat us special. We just like a normal aged people in the street. We have to really do something ourselves to maybe try to look after them a little bit better. So we, over the year, I believe, to me, aging is the biggest problem. As you can imagine, since 1997, we don't have any new blood coming into the service. That means the last soldier, they joined before 1997, they are now at the age of 50 above. As they're getting older, then there's a more and more problem will come. This is the biggest challenge we are facing.
How do you think veteran support in Hong Kong compares to other countries?
Not very good, to be honest. In some of the countries, like Canada, they have a minister to look after the veteran affairs. In Hong Kong, we really need to organize this ourselves. We, in the government, of course, we just like a normal aged people. If they need help, they can still ask for the government's help. We here, we have some special fund that look after aged people, and then the government really don't have anything special to organize us, but we are okay. We can survive.
What policies or programs do you think could be improved to better support veterans in Hong Kong?
Wow, really? We don't. At the moment, we are okay with ourselves, and the policy, like the Hong Kong government, improve the policy to look after the aged people, but as a whole group. So we don't have any difference from them. Government, I think if the government continue to improve their policy to look after the senior people, and then we can benefit from them. And then we don't really expect, I don't think it won't happen, is that we have something different for us.
Through Mr. Lam's insightful words, we've come to appreciate the dedication and efforts of veterans in Hong Kong, as well as the ongoing initiatives to support them. Now, let's shift our focus to the Korean Peninsula, where conscription policies have a major impact on young individuals. In South Korea, mandatory military service is a crucial and often transformative experience. We had a chance to speak with one who recently completed his conscription and shared his experience in the military. Can you share your experience of fulfilling your compulsory military service in the Korean Army?
Working at the guardhouse was one of the tough challenges. My role there was to stop people and vehicles coming into the camp and do identification. And also I had to monitor if anyone is trespassing into the camp. And the weather was always a problem because I had to stand outside for 4 to 5 hours a day. And especially during winter, since where I work was in the northern part of South Korea, the temperature dropped to -20 degrees. With all the extra coat, this didn't help that much. And it was my first time feeling pain on my skin of my whole body. And I had to force myself to jump to feel warm, but this still wasn't helpful. And after finishing the duty, I often had to eat instant cup noodles to make my body warm instantly.
So how does South Korea support individuals who have completed their mandatory service in terms of like healthcare, employment, and social reintegration?
It is true that the government provides a lot of support before being discharged from the military, but I hope they will continue to support to provide such support after being discharged from the military. One major issue is the lack of employment support. Many soldiers struggle to find jobs because they don't have access to enough resources and information. About this problem, maybe the government could create mentoring opportunities between soldiers and civilian professionals. And maybe the next issue could be financial support. Because, although we can save a lot of money through military installment savings, it is often not enough to cover our initial living expenses. Plus, there's a lack of financial management education and additional benefits. Maybe providing financial education programs and additional financial support or benefit could help soldiers manage their finance better after discharge.
So, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced during those 2 years?
Yeah, it wasn't a short journey. All men in Korea must serve in the military for 18 months. And this is one of the few biggest challenges we face as adults. And at first, I didn't want to join the military because I was afraid and worried about the life in the military. However, after finishing my service in the military, I felt glad and proud to finish my compulsory military service. I had many new experiences that I thought were special. When would I shoot a gun or throw a grenade or walk 20 kilometers carrying a 20 kg bag if I didn't serve in the military? So these experiences cannot be experienced easily anywhere. And of course, I don't want to return and serve again, but I don't regret serving, and it has become a memorable moment for me.
The shadow of the Second World War, many Jews had no choice but to flee.
Right. So why did a significant number of Jewish refugees would, come to Hong Kong in the first place? They can just directly go to Shanghai or Macau, or even Macau is safer, but why Hong Kong?
It's not really a destination of choice. It's not a desirable destination, but so many other desirable destinations have been cut off. So you have the White Paper in Palestine in 1939, which essentially cuts off that route of escape. There's quotas in America, similar restrictions to refugee immigration in Europe and in Britain. And so Shanghai is really a port of last resort. And Hong Kong is really just a way station to Shanghai. So the way that people would come to escape to Shanghai was that they would take a train to one of the Italian ports, to Trieste, and then they would take a luxury ocean liner. These were the tourist liners, and this was because it was the only way to come to Shanghai. There was very little choice, and it was intense competition for tickets as well. And so they would take the ocean liners and they would pass through the Suez Canal, and they would go to the ports dotted along the way. So you had Aden, you had Colombo, you had Singapore and Hong Kong. And Hong Kong was the penultimate port before Shanghai. And at all of these different ports, the ship had to refuel, they would get food. And so that's the way that people came to Shanghai, through Hong Kong.
The influx of Jewish refugees brought new challenges and dynamics to this already complex society. The local community's reactions was mixed. While there was a degree of sympathy and humanitarian support, the refugees mostly faced discriminations and suspicion. Many locals viewed the refugees with a mix of curiosity and wariness, partly due to their refugee status as German or Austrian, and partly because of the strained resources during wartime.
Sure. Well, I found in my research that it's not an accurate number. It's an estimate that probably 117 people were able to escape to Hong Kong, and they came to Hong Kong. And they came to Hong Kong through employment opportunities, through family networks, or because they had come to Shanghai and then they'd found jobs in Hong Kong. So they'd actually gone up to Shanghai and then back to Hong Kong again. But actually, Hong Kong was a more desirable destination than Shanghai. Conditions and quality of life was better for the Jewish refugees in Hong Kong than it was for Shanghai. So those 117 people, they were working in Hong Kong, they had livelihoods in Hong Kong. Hong Kong was a hyper-racialized society. The British, some British people were very racist. They were racist against the Chinese, against the Portuguese, against anyone who was not British. There was xenophobia, there was racism. At this time, there was globally a blaming of Jews for taking, for seeming to take scarce jobs after the Depression. You can see this a little bit in Hong Kong as well from the sources that I've seen. As I've said earlier, there was a very hostile immigration landscape. They actually tightened the immigration controls for Jewish refugees specifically in February 1939. So, they were very cognizant of Jewish refugees coming through and going to Shanghai, and they made sure that Jewish refugees, could not come and legally emigrate to Hong Kong.
Several organizations and individuals played significant roles in supporting the Jewish refugees. The Kadoorie family, one of the most influential Jewish families in Hong Kong and Shanghai, was particularly instrumental. They advocate for the refugees, especially skilled workers, to the colonial government, helping many secure the necessary permission to stay. The Kadoorie family, known for their philanthropy and business acumen, provide substantial financial support and resources to the refugees. Lawrence and Horace Kadoorie, in particular, were dedicated to helping the refugees become self-supporting and independent. They established programs to provide shelters, employment, and education, ensuring that the refugees could regain their dignity and find security in their new lives. The Kadoorie family's influence in Hong Kong was profound. They were involved in various sectors, from utilities to hospitality, and their philanthropic efforts were well known. Lawrence Kadoorie, in particular, was a vocal advocate for the Jewish refugees. In 1939, he gave a heartfelt speech at the Hong Kong Jewish Recreation Club, emphasizing the desperate plight of Jewish communities abroad. He spoke passionately about the role of Hong Kong Jewish community in supporting the refugee diaspora. Lawrence's efforts went beyond words. He personally visited the passport office numerous times to advocate for refugees in transit or those who had settled in the colony. Our team, with the support of the Hong Kong Heritage Project, had the opportunity to visit and document their archives about the Kadoorie family. These documents, now disclosed to the public, reveal the immense contributions and unwavering support the Kadoorie family provide to the Jewish refugees. Through letters, photographs, and personal telegram, we witness the profound impact of their efforts and the lives they touched.
For example. And so what we have in the Heritage Project archive is that we see letters from Lawrence Kadoorie petitioning on behalf of the refugees, and he does this a lot. He writes to Thomas King, who is the head of the police. He writes to the governor, and he does this at specific pain points. So he does this when refugees are arrested and interned at LaSalle College on the outbreak of war in 1939. Refugees are rounded up as part of this legislation against enemy aliens. And then he does it again for refugees who are deported in 1940, in June 1940, as I mentioned earlier. They're deported from Hong Kong, they go to Shanghai. It's the only place open to them. And he is able to save some refugees from being deported. And he's also able to act as a guarantor and get some refugees released from LaSalle College, which was the internment camp early as well. So he does do a lot to lobby the Hong Kong government.
Among the many refugees was Edgar Laufer, who traveled from the United Kingdom to Hong Kong in 1938. Laufer joined China Light and Power to work in the laboratory at Hock Power Stations and retired in 1980s. His story is a testament to the resilience and contributions of the Jewish refugees in Hong Kong. Edgar's journey from a war-torn Europe to a thriving career in Hong Kong exemplifies the determinations and adaptability of the Jewish refugees.
Asking you, when did you first join China Light and Power?
In 1938. I do have degrees in chemistry and mathematics, and there was no chemist working in China Light, but a chemist was badly needed. So I started the chemical services at the one power station that was then in use in Hokkien. And it was a very interesting activity. I advised the company on what had to be ordered to do the necessary work. I mean, for instance, burettes for adding chemicals to water samples. And also there was a magnascope, lots of glassware. Whatever was, and of course there was the laboratory itself, which I had the pleasure of designing. And it was all done in good time.
Now, what we see is that most of them stay in Hong Kong for about 10 years until about the 1950s, and then most of them leave for places like Australia, America, and Britain. And that's because, as you mentioned earlier, Hong Kong was not really a destination of choice for these refugees. They wanted to go to places which were English-speaking, maybe where they had friends and family, they had existing networks, maybe they had better job opportunities. I think one of the only Jewish refugees to stay in Hong Kong, certainly until the 2000s, was a man named Edgar Laufer.
Germany, they accept refugees as well. How should we treat them in this way? What kind of measures can we do? During that period of time, in the World War II, the colonial government, they deported most of the refugees, Jewish refugees, because they are connected to their backgrounds, which is German citizens or Austrian citizens, and then they got deported. But they're also, they got targeted and purged in their own country as well. So how can we prevent this from happening again, especially with, refugee crisis in Germany previously in 2015 or 2014?
15. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, just as you mentioned it, the Jewish people getting imprisoned in Hong Kong from the English, they did not get imprisoned because they were Jewish, but because they were German. So this is like kind of an irony, right?
Yeah.
So they being persecuted by the Germans for being Jewish and by the British for being German. So the whole thing about identity, everybody has a few identities at the same time. And what can we do? I mean, this is a very complicated question. How should we treat the refugees? And like it's 2015, Germany took like more than 1 million, and now 2022, after the invasion from Russia into Ukraine, we take another 1.3 million people, right? Which I think we are a rich country after all, and I think this is one thing that Germany has kind of made the decision to always be tolerant towards, and human. This is humanitarian reasons. This is not political, not economically, but we said these people need protection, and we are able to give them protection, so we will. But on the ground, of course, things are more complicated because you have to feed them, you have to educate them, you have to give them work and everything, and which, of course, it's a huge task, and government after government is fighting to do it right. There is no easy answer for that. And the same thing, of course, applies to Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong could do more, if you ask me, but things are complicated. A lot of, organizations, institutions are included. You need schools, you need housing. Which is a big problem in Hong Kong, of course. You need education. You need some kind of legal work, some legal status. Very complicated. Right. But I think we all should be aware that being a refugee is something really awful. Nobody likes to be a refugee, and we should be always aware that all of us could be some refugee at one point of our life as well.
Yes.
There is no guarantee for that.
Right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The story of the Jewish refugees in Hong Kong during World War II is a poignant reminder of the importance of compassion, resilience, and the enduring human spirit.
Since 2008, the number of refugees seeking asylum in Germany has continued to rise. Germany has been the country that received most refugees in Europe. The refugee issues in Germany is multifaceted and evolving topic has attracted widespread attention in recent years. According to the UNHCR statistics, there are about 2.5 million refugees in Germany of 2023. Effectively handling refugee issues can help promote social stability by providing appropriate support and integration opportunities. Refugees can better adapt to their new environment and reduce the possibility of social tension and conflict. Therefore, how to properly accommodate refugees and understanding the conditions of refugees in Germany is important now.
Settlement, the refugees are settled in Germany. And then I think it's a long-term thing. Things will not be solved within a few years. It takes one generation. So the first generation who comes to Germany, and this is actually true to any other country as well.
I would like to ask, how would you assess the effectiveness of current assistance programs for refugees, like particularly in comparing Germany to Hong Kong?
I think that's for me very hard to answer. I think in Germany there are a lot of very effective measures, like teaching the language. In Germany they have to speak German. If they don't speak German, then they have a very hard time for to getting a job. So there is very effective, and of course the schooling of the children. I think it's very, very effective, very, very crucial. The people come in. Even if the children have had some years in school in, let's say, Afghanistan, they have to be reschooled in Germany, right? German standards. And this actually, I think it's by and large a success. Because you always have people who you don't want to learn, but in general, it's a. And I don't know how it is in Hong Kong. What I hear is that in Hong Kong you have kind of special schools for the people. We don't. We try in Germany to integrate them in the society, and in order to do this, you cannot separate them. In our belief, you cannot separate them and say, okay, you have a different school, special schools for people who are not Hong Kongers. In our case, who are not German, we cannot do that. So we try to integrate them in the general school system, which is not always easy. But I think this is a good approach.
Especially spontaneously coming up for my mind is the recognition of qualification of refugees. Like you mentioned, you have a degree from your home university, let's say in Damascus. You're maybe a doctor or a dentist, but you can't practice as such because your degree is not recognized. That's one big hurdle. I used to have a student in my class who is a lawyer, but he cannot work as a lawyer because his degree is worthless. It's not being recognized. But this was many years ago. Second would be actually resulting from this employment chances. They're really low employment chances. And a lot of refugees did work before, like when they went over, let's say refugees from Syria, they went via Turkey. Some of them worked there for a few years, let's say as mechanics or as painters, and then went further to Europe, to Germany particularly. Beside bureaucracy, I would say certainly language, but language may even be more problematic than you think. Like when you learn a language as a student, you come with certain basics. You know at least your own language. You know how to read and write your own language, right? So when you teach integration classes, you happen to have cases of people that never went to school at all. I had a student once, he was in his late 40s. He has never seen a school from inside. He doesn't even know how to read or write in his own native language. And imagine you have to teach German to a person who can't even read or write in their own language, not to mention expressing himself. So sometimes you have to teach with hands and feet and be the clown in front of the class to actually teach the very basics. And it's not just the language for cases like this, it's also in general alphabetization.
We also want to ask about your personal thoughts, like what is your perspective on the future of refugee policies in Germany, and maybe do you foresee any substantial changes in the acceptance and integration of refugees?
There might be some shifts towards, more strict procedures, but no, I hope not. And I hope that European Union will start to address this problem in unity.
It's a huge problem, and Europe may have some solution to solve this problem by communicating together and try to solve the problem by making some changes in the refugees policy.
Yeah, but what kind of changes should this be? I mean, I think, like I said, I think everything's on the table. We know how to do it, and we know how to integrate, but it's a long-term project, right? So we have to put more effort in it, and of course we have to adapt, and this is constantly, you have to adapt the laws to the situation, the worldwide situation, right? And the laws to the European Union.
I said mutual respect, mutual understanding. Of course, treating criminals the way how criminals should be treated. So with the rule of law, most importantly. So charging them, giving them a proper prison sentence, or deport them entirely. I totally agree with this. And I think that that's a reasonable way to deal with that for a government. So dealing with criminals as such as criminals, but at the same way supporting and maybe offering more and active support to those who do wish to integrate, who do wish to learn about the society and do wish to make a living and start a new life, start over as decent people. And I think this is the right way people should be integrating them, and stressing the importance of integration classes.
Hong Kong, despite not being a signatory to the Refugee Convention, has historically served as a refuge for those in need. From 1975 to 2005, over 230,000 Vietnamese refugees sought safety here. However, since the 1980s, policies have tightened, and by 1991, fewer than 20% of applicants were recognized as genuine refugees. As of 2016, the refugee population was reported at 86,000, down from 130,000 in 2015. The average since 1990 has been 1,200, peaking at 8,100 that year. These statistics underscore the changing landscape of refugee support in Hong Kong and the ongoing challenges faced by those seeking safety.
In 1998, the Hong Kong government announced the cancellation of the first port of asylum policy, which kind of marked the end of this refugee crisis, right, with the Vietnamese boat people. And since then, Hong Kong government doesn't really recognize refugees as such. What exists in Hong Kong at the moment is the non-refoulement procedure. Immigrants or illegal immigrants can file for a non-refoulement, can lodge a non-refoulement application, right? So although the numbers of these new refugees or asylum seekers, since they're not officially refugees, right? So this new asylum seekers, the numbers are not very high at the moment in Hong Kong. So we are talking, and this is according to the Hong Kong Immigration Department, about 10 to 11,000 people. The process of accepting them, or the process of giving or substantiating their refoulement, application has been really slow. Some research says that it's about 0.4% of all the asylum seekers actually receive or are granted or substantiated. Right now, Hong Kong is also called as one of the world's regions with the slowest pace of processing claims and the lowest degree of acceptance of refugees.
At one point, 1 year, it was like, I think it was the coldest of, it was coldest in 50 years. I think that year was supposed to be. And so it was really cold. And then it was at 9 o'clock, the mother called me and said, "Oh, Mom, I mean, it's really cold here. Do you have mattresses?" And I was like, "Oh, wow, what happened? Why do you need mattress? And do you have a heater?" So then that night, the chairman and I, we went to, because it's 9 o'clock. So I don't have mattress. I didn't have mattress in my home. But then it happened that in our office, we had a mattress. So we brought it over. Now that scene was really still struck me a lot. I opened the door and I saw there lots of smoke. There was lots of smoke in a home, and that's a subdivided flat. And I was like, what's going on? Why there was smoke? Is it like on fire, right? And then they said, no, Mom, it's not on fire. You know how they try to get themselves warm? In subdivided flat, the toilet is inside, right? So basically, it's because it's small. What they did was they turned on the heater. They turned on the heater for the water, for the shower. So that they turn on the water, they turn on the shower, so that the heat, the water would, that when you turn on the water, then the shower, then the water, the heat would come out. So they try to get warm by doing that. And then you can imagine that took a lot of first creativity, but second, you can see how desperate it was, our landscape. And because then our government is now prioritizing security over human rights principle. So the challenges they face, of course, is the fear of sending home. You don't know when. You kind of know when, but you don't know when exactly, or whether you'll be sent home anytime, anywhere, And second is the right to work. While you're here, you're not given the right to work. And then, of course, for children is if they stay here too long, until they can, of course, continue on studying until they finish high school. But after high school, they cannot continue on receiving free education in Hong Kong because they are not a citizen. So they can't work, they can't study unless they have sponsors. That actually have a lot of impacts on young people, right? That what are they doing here? So these are the things, these are the challenges that they face. Like, what kind of future will they hold, right? And no money, and no security, and no future.
The challenges that these refugees face are mainly, I think, that they depend on social welfare or charity, since according to the policy in Hong Kong, they're not allowed to work, and because of that, they cannot earn their own money, but depend on charity support. And the other kind of challenge that goes together with that is that they don't really have a lot of interaction with the local population, which makes their life to some extent isolated, and their integration really slow.
As we conclude our documentary, we reflect on the impactful events we organized in early November. Over 4 days, we brought together voices and stories that deepened our understanding of remembrance and the human cost of war. On the first day, we explored the theme of remembrance with the curators of the exhibition Lost and Found in Hong Kong, Angus Hui and John Mack, Their insights into the artifacts and stories of the past were profound. We were also honored to hear from Mr. Jason Yip, who shared his experience as a mediator in Afghanistan with the International Red Cross. His stories highlighted the complexities and challenges of conflict resolution. Day 2 brought us a conversation with Mr. Rüdiger Hesse, co-founder and deputy chairman of Combat Veteran e.V. His discussion on the support provided to veterans in Germany was eye-opening. We also had the privilege of listening to Dr. Vasco Kretschmann from the German War Graves Commission. His presentation on peace education, especially with young people, underscored the importance of remembrance and learning from the past. Day 3 was dedicated to the stories of refugees. Dr. Maria Todorova hosted an insightful open forum with Mr. Aimé Girimana, Mr. LUI Ho Wang, and Ms. Ibkaman. Mr. Girimana shared his experience of leaving Burundi, highlighting the personal and emotional challenges faced by refugees. Mr. LUI Ho Wang discussed the poignant art created in the detention centers of Vietnamese refugees in Hong Kong, offering a unique perspective on their resilience and creativity. Ms. Ibkaman presented a touching documentary about her mother, who was one of these refugees, providing a deeply personal account. Their personal narratives are inspiring, reminding us of the ongoing struggles faced by refugees around the world. These stories not only shed light on the past, but also emphasize the need of empathy and support for those who continue to face such challenges today. On the final day, we closed the exhibition with a presentation from Mr. Xavier Pech, president of the Hong Kong Committee of Le Souvenir Français. His talk emphasized the importance of preserving the memory of those who fought and suffered during times of war. These 4 days were a testament of the power of remembrance and the importance of giving a voice to those who are often forgotten. Through these events, we not only honored the past, but also fostered a deeper understanding and empathy for the present. As we bring our documentary to a close, we look back to an important event that underscores the very essence of our project. On November 10th, we joined the Remembrance Day ceremony at the Cenotaph in Hong Kong. This solemn occasion honors the memory of those who have served and sacrificed in times of war. Being invited as a guest to the ceremony was a profound honor. It is a moment to reflect on the stories we've shared and the people we've met throughout this journey. The cenotaph stands as a symbol of remembrance, a place where we can collectively honor the past and commit to a future of peace and understanding. Thank you for joining us on this journey of remembrance and reflection. We hope that the stories of experiences shared in this documentary inspire you to engage with veterans and refugees, to listen to their voices, to honor their sacrifices. Together, let us remember the past, honor the present, and strive for a future where peace and understanding prevail.